Hey guys, this is Brian. I just wanted to conclude my video series on building a custom mold-resistant RV. You have to excuse my appearance right now. You guys are getting to see me raw in real time surviving the New Mexico winter. And I just woke up, by the way. I've got about 1 hour before I'm taking my kids skiing, so I look kind of disheveled, but it's my only chance to make this video. And I have been sleeping in here down to temperatures of about -5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a huge blessing because normally mold avoiders are sort of forced to bail out of cold climates for the winter so that they can not freeze to death because they don't want to live in conventional housing. So this is the first winter that we've been able to stay in our clear location all winter, most of the winter. I'm going to go into some details here and get a little technical on the things that I would do differently and mistakes I made. As you can see, the custom RV is not done yet at all. It's still half insulated. My family's not living in it here, obviously. It's not really livable for them. I am living in it. My family's living in a rental house that's on the same property. I have better pictures. You guys probably want to know what this looks like. And instead of me walking around and trying to get video with the bad lighting and everything, I'm going to tell you that I have a public Google Photos album with about 20 pictures of the RV as it currently looks. And I'm going to link that in the description of this YouTube video in case you guys want to see that. I have had to build a little shelter within a shelter to sleep in. I put a little door up on the front of that so that I have a little styrofoam box, and I have one space heater there and one there, 2 space heaters in there, and then a 3rd space heater there, and then a wood-burning stove there. So I essentially have 4 sources of heat in here to stay warm when it gets down to -5, and I have been able to stay warm enough. Actually hot. Most nights I'm peeling off my clothes in the middle of the night. So a couple things. When I hired the company to build this, my goal was to build a custom RV that was turnkey, basically like a regular RV. It had tanks, it had utilities, it was like finished, beautiful, right? I regret doing that. I was kind of idealistic. I'm realizing that my theme, my purpose for the year 2020 is going to be realistic. Brian Rosner needs to be realistic because I went in and I thought that I was going to be able to build this thing perfectly. And what ended up happening was the company that I hired kind of flaked out on me, and the work that they did do was quality, but they were just unable to pull it together. So I ended up spending about $42,000 on a metal box. And it does have some built-in things here, like I've got this long stainless steel countertop, which I actually installed the stainless steel myself. I had a metal shop cut me some stainless steel pieces. You don't really want to finish your living surfaces out of this shop metal. It's kind of soft and full of lead and stuff. So I wanted sorry, it's just kind of a mess here. I'm just kind of batching it out here, but I wanted the surfaces that I'm touching to be stainless steel. Anyway, I ended up paying a lot of extra money for what turned out to be not worth it. They didn't really do much. They didn't really finish it. They were a metal shop. Here's a tip for you guys. It's very hard to find a metal shop that can build something to your specs that also knows how to do RV finish work. It's one or the other. If you find a company that knows how to build a full RV that's complete, livable, luxurious, or not even luxurious, just complete, they probably are not going to have the flexibility to build what you want in the wall structure that you want. I'm not going to go into all the details of these walls I think I've shared this in other videos, but everything in here is very specific on how I picked it and, the ceiling and what's happening in here. But you kind of have to choose one or the other. You either build an RV or buy an RV that's already done the way they want it, or you find a metal shop that'll probably build you something incomplete, but it's how you want it. And at this point, I'm leaning toward I'm really favoring the idea of just hiring a metal shop to build a metal box without all the finishing and amenities. I know that's kind of a bummer because then it's not ready to live in right away, but it's too much risk, too time consuming, too much micromanagement of the team to rely on somebody to build the RV for you from start to finish. Unless you have a miracle and you run into a company that is run by Jesus himself and they're going to build it how you want and do all the amenities on schedule, on budget. It's not, as far as I know, I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I don't think Jesus runs metal shops at this point. So I would avoid that. Now, let's see. Sorry, I'm a little bit. A friend of mine just started making mold avoidance videos, and they edit them and make them pretty, and there's no pauses. I'm not going to do that. I'm not motivated enough, you guys. I feel well enough now that I'm outside with my kids. We're looking for things to do. I don't really care about editing videos. So if this is too slow for you guys or it's not a perfect video, I don't really care if you watch it or not. I'm just sharing what I've learned in about 3 months and $100,000 of mistakes. But if you think you can learn that information easier somewhere else, be my guest. And I don't mean to be mean, but when people complain about my videos, they're like, "Oh, can you change the lighting?" Or I'm like, do you realize the blood, sweat, and tears and pain and inconvenience and toxic places I had to go to acquire this wisdom? If you had one iota of common sense and wisdom, you would be so grateful for these videos and watch them 100 times and send me thank you notes that you didn't have to go out and make these same mistakes. I'm being a little ironic, but I really am serious though. Like when people complain about free resources that take 20 minutes to watch, I'm like, really? Like if someone had showed me this information, it would have saved me so much time and money and months and thousands of dollars. I would have been writing them thank you notes, even if the video is like wonky and it's not edited properly. So get your head straight before you send me a note on my videos and think about if there's another place to get this information, and if there is, go watch it. I don't care. I don't get paid for these videos. So, moral of the story, and I'm about to get there in a minute. The important thing about this right now is that I can survive the winter in it. We're going to try to finish it out. I am not convinced that I'm even going to worry about insulating it. A lot of the mold avoiders that are doing really well now live in uninsulated structures. And I know that's controversial, and my family and kids, wouldn't be able to live in it in the wintertime. But Karen Dean lives in an uninsulated metal house. Some other mold avoiders, by the way, I have a podcast where I interview Karen Dean on my podcast. It's called Metal Housing for Mold Avoiders. I'm actually turning off my space heater now because it's hot. But there's other mold avoiders that live in canvas tents with heaters. Insulating structures is such a pain in the butt, and it gives the opportunity for mold to grow, and there's really not a whole lot of benefit to it. Now, granted, in the very coldest months of a very cold winter, it's not quite warm enough in here, but it's just a small price to pay. You guys have heard me talk about how cold tolerance raises dramatically when you're in a clear location. So if you can just stay clear for the winter, your body can tolerate much lower temperatures. I realize it doesn't work for kids. My family has never slept in here. They come in and they play. I've got some toys back there, but they live in a regular house for the winter. In the summertime, the temperatures will be up, and we'll have this thing more ready. We also have our other RV where the kids can live and sleep. This is kind of more of my space. Not that a family couldn't live in here. They definitely could, but it's just not really ready for that. And even though it was built, it is RV certified, so it has the safety certifications and everything, which is one of the reasons why I picked that company, so that we would have a certified RV. it has the important structural things that an RV has. That's one reason not to use a regular metal shop, by the way, you guys. I chose to use an RV certified manufacturer. Even though they were a little bit flaky, they were able to give me a DMV certificate that this is not only roadworthy and has the proper traffic lights. You got to remember, to pull these on the road, they have to be street legal. They have to have the traffic lights and the dimensions and the proper axles and everything like that. So this has that. It is DMV certified. They are a member of that RV organization. I forget what it's called, for fire safety and everything like that. So anyway, getting down to what I was going to tell you that I think is so important. This is the most important thing I'm going to say. This RV has been hugely surprising in one way, and that is that I have felt so much better since I've been sleeping in here and working in here on my laptop. You can't even see my laptop because it's such a mess. There's my coffee. My health has skyrocketed since I have been spending my days in here rather than in the house. And it makes me really question, we owned 3 Freedom Express RVs that I thought were good, and they probably were good enough to heal, and they were, but living in an all-metal structure and seeing my health literally just skyrocket, and my brain power and my memory and my motivation and everything has been so eye-opening to me. I am not often surprised at this point in my mold avoidance journey. We've been doing mold avoidance for 2.5 years, and I feel like I'm far enough along now that the learning curve, I'm not that surprised anymore at things, but I have been shocked at how much better I feel in here. It is life-changingly different, and I am so grateful for that lesson. Even if we don't end up keeping this as our primary house, which we might not because it's not really that livable, even if I wasted a lot of money on this, because this thing is probably worth about $20,000 and I paid $40,000 for it because I unknowingly committed to a contract at an RV company that was taking 2 to 3 to 6 to 10 months to build it, and I had to bail out and say, look, you guys, here's your money. I want my RV because I need a place to live. And it was kind of a horrible, well, not horrible, but it was a lot of mistakes that I made. Still, to be able to learn, have this aha moment where I cannot believe how much better I feel living in here. It is beyond description since I started spending my time in here, even compared to a good enough wooden house or RV. And it made me really realize, Eric was posting information about how 30 years ago or so, they started using different kinds of chemical wood preservers in processed plywood and building materials in OSB. And Eric has talked about how mold and microorganisms can chew through these chemicals and turn them into nanoparticles, and that's part of his theory about what's making us sick, is these nanoparticle chemicals that come from modern toxic chemicals that mold has sort of eaten and then pooped out mycotoxins that are laced with these nanoparticles. Now, I don't want that to be Eric's official description because he knows more about the science and the details. That's my dumbed down Brian Rosner understanding of it, so please don't think that that's Eric's formal position. But anyway, what I think is happening is that modern houses, modern RVs, modern wooden structures, even if they're not overtly moldy, there is enough nanoparticle emission from the particle board, the plywood, that is causing these SIRS people, mold illness people, whatever you want to call them, to get incredibly sick. And I never knew this until I started living in metal. Now, I will say that I've been sleeping in the back of my truck, which is all metal, and I've always felt better sleeping in the back of my truck. But you can't live in the back of a truck, so I get out in the day and I would spend my time in wooden buildings and coffee shops. So it was only when I had a space big enough and functional enough to spend all of my time in here that I started realizing, wow, I feel so much better. You guys, I can't even describe it. It's blown me away. It's been a huge shock to me. I'm not often shocked anymore at this point in my journey. It's not to say that I don't learn new things. I still learn a lot of new things, but I'm not often shocked and blown away by a change in how I feel. It's remarkable. I don't even know if I'm going to need ozone anymore at all living in this thing. And it's such a key piece of wisdom and knowledge too, right? Because even if this RV is too big and too expensive and clunky, anybody can, well, not anybody, but I could build a smaller version of this for much cheaper. You could probably build this for $2,000 or $3,000 if you hired a metal shop just to put it on a platform trailer. I have aluminum siding and stuff. Like, if you just stripped it down and you didn't have the big Brian Rosner idealistic vision of this like big luxury completed RV, and I don't mean luxury, I mean sink and toilet and lights, and if you just get rid of that vision of it, it's so much easier to do. So this is kind of comforting to me to know that if this were to get in a car accident or get ruined somehow, that I could still live in something like this for the rest of my life. And I still am gonna spend time in the house with my family and go to other places. But I mean work, sleep, live in my own time. And now I can see why Eric has said that building his custom camper, which is very similar in construction to this, steel frame with aluminum siding, he said that's the best thing he's ever done. So I can totally understand why, because I am a new person since being in here. It's totally blown me away, and I really never ever want to live in anything else for the rest of my life. We have our friendly dog out here. You can see my New Mexico view out the window. It's very beautiful here. It's a nice day, but it is going to get down to 0 degrees tomorrow. This process has been a process of a leap of faith at every step of the way, a leap of faith in realizing that EMF is not that big of a deal. I spent months worrying about whether EMF, in this RV, would EMF, from my computer, from Wi-Fi, would the electromagnetic frequencies bounce around in here and make me sick because EMF sensitivity, which I'm not very much anymore, but with this amount of money, I was still worried about that. I was worried about, what about aluminum exposure? The body being exposed to this much aluminum, could it give you aluminum toxicity? We've got this neighborhood dog. Sorry, he's like become our friend because my kids feed him turkey. My wife makes like turkey meat and then the kids feed him, so he's scratching on my door and he's not even my dog. So sorry, again, a few distractions, but I was worried about EMF. I was worried about aluminum. I was worried about, but one of the whole premises of this of mold illness is that there are these very specific toxins that are causing 99.9% of the illness in our bodies, and you can't avoid all toxins. Nothing's perfect, so a lot of people end up just doing nothing, and they are paralyzed by the fear of every single toxin possible. But I took a leap of faith and believed that if I avoid the modern construction wood toxins, that would be what was 99.9%. And I'm not saying it's super healthy and that I should lick the aluminum walls, but you guys, I am a new person. One of the big changes for me has been, I can't even start to describe. I'll go into a few of the things. I used to have adrenal fatigue, which now I believe is completely caused by mold. I used to not be able to really do anything like that's super stressful on the adrenals, and now I will admit that my pastime, I like video games, and I've been playing I bought an Xbox to play in here, and I used to only be able to play for like an hour or two, and then my adrenals would be screwed up because I play like very intense video games, and that's totally gone now. It's just crazy. Food cravings and food allergies and addictions and things are just totally gone since moving in here about a week ago. I had another mold avoider tell me that when they moved in their metal house, all of this stuff changed. What else? I could just go on and on. I drink tons of coffee now. I drink black coffee, fully caffeinated black coffee, and I've had a lot of experienced mold avoiders tell them that coffee has helped them detox and get energy. And normal people all over the world drink coffee without all these adrenal problems. I've been guzzling coffee. It's like my body craves coffee now. It makes me feel great. I can have coffee right before bed and sleep like a baby. Sorry for all the interruptions. I'm having to make this video in segments because my kids are knocking on the door and I have business calls coming in. But I am not, my point in saying that I don't have these food allergies and I can play video games for hours and I can drink coffee my point is not that I'm like, hey, you guys, like, coffee's the healthiest thing in the world, which, by the way, I do think coffee actually is healthy, or video games are healthy, or, that's not my point. My point is that living in this trailer has normalized my system in some miraculous ways. And then once people become normalized, they can make up their own mind about if they want to drink coffee or play video games. But my point isn't that everyone should drink coffee and play video games. My point is that the normalization of the body by living in here has just been remarkable. And I know I'm starting to repeat myself now because it's just been mind-boggling. It's been one of the biggest skyrockets of improvement I've had since starting mold avoidance. And that was surprising to me because I had always thought that, I've kind of mastered the outdoor air situation. I've learned to identify outdoor super toxins and outdoor minor toxins. And, we live in a place now that's extremely pristine. And I've just kind of thought that was the whole ball game. And the last 2 rental houses we've had, the first one went really moldy. But even before that, I never felt totally well in that house. Something was always just a little bit off. And the Coachman Freedom Express RVs we had, they felt so good to me, but I never felt like this before. It's almost like the body can sense that there are no biotoxins in here at all. And no chemicals really either, because aluminum is inert. It doesn't, that could be part of it. But before everybody goes crazy and says, oh, see, Brian, it really was chemicals and VOCs, it's just not true, because I have a lot of insulation in the RV now. It's kind of half insulated. And I am, this insulation supposedly isn't very healthy for people. It's got fire retardants and this and that, and it's polystyrene, and my wood burning stove heats it up, and I can smell the gases coming off of the insulation, and oh no, you're exposed to chemicals. But it hasn't helped me from feeling absolutely beyond expectations of fantastic. So again, I think my message really boils down to, if you can avoid the 1 or 2 or 3 primary super toxins that are causing this illness. We're going under the assumption, you guys, that there is a real cause for this illness. Sorry, you guys can see my carrot juice and cottage cheese because I'm sitting in my work chair now, and you are getting a bird's eye view of my I'm not very organized in here yet because it's just been so exciting to have my brain back and working and stuff. I need to clean things up. But anyway, if you can avoid the primary important toxins, these other toxins don't matter as much. And we're going under the assumption, guys, that our illness has a cause, right? It's not caused by everything. It's not caused by fragrance and diesel fumes, and I don't even think it's caused by infections, really. I made you guys should check out my podcast. I've made some really good podcast episodes recently. And they go into how Lyme disease 30 years ago wasn't as big of a problem. Is that because there was actually less tick-borne infections, or was it because there was the same amount of tick-borne infections, but people had less toxicity in their system, and so they could flush out the biotoxins better? That's my new theory, that Lyme disease has been a problem for thousands of years, but it's only been with recent modern toxicity that it has overflowed the cup, if you will, of toxicity. So there was a National Geographic article about how they found a caveman that had Borrelia. He was infected with Lyme disease. And so it's possible that Lyme disease has been around forever. And so where I'm going with this is that if you can avoid the biotoxins, the biotoxic exposure, then worrying about aluminum and coffee and stuff, it just goes away. It's all a problem with our modern housing. And it's not a problem with natural wood. If you can live in, this is going to be my new housing goal, if you can live in a house that's made out of like a log cabin, that's untreated logs, yeah, you might have a little mold, but I bet it would be 1,000 times healthier than a modern home. So surprisingly, this custom RV has been a incredible learning experience for me, giving me new vision about what our family's housing needs to look like in the future, giving me new insight, making me feel so much better. And so that's kind of my message to you. I know what you guys were hoping this video would be about is how do I build it? What is the structure? You know, which company do you hire? Where do you go? And I can't necessarily recommend my company. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They did quality work, but I don't know that I would go back to them because they just took forever and they didn't get a lot of stuff done. And maybe I had unrealistic expectations too because I needed this thing yesterday. But anyway, my message to you is that the health improvements that come from living in here have blown me away. It almost feels like being outside, but better. I feel better in here than I do outside. I don't know why that is. I don't know if the metal is maybe blocking some EMFs that are in the area because it's like a Faraday cage, but the EMFs inside don't bother me. My computer, my hotspot, nothing bothers me in here. Oh, I wanted to mention too that since living in this MECU, you'll have to do some research to know what a MECU is, I have become much less aware or reactive to a lot of things, like even HT, the super toxin HT. My HT reactivity was already 80% gone by the time that we built this, but there were a few particular items that just seemed to harbor a lot of HT, and I just kind of stayed away from them. And in here, they just don't bother me. It's like my whole system is just working better in here, and the things that used to bother me just don't anymore. It's beyond description. So I'm sorry if this video isn't so much about how to build it, because I think I got way too mired in the whole how do you build it and what do you put in and should you put in LED lights or this or whatever. My advice to you is just get something built. People can convert cargo trailers. I had a cargo trailer once and I took some of the wood out and it still didn't feel that good to me. I don't know why. Maybe the wood leaves a residue or something, but my suggestion is just do it and don't worry about the details. And the other thing I learned about this, and sorry I'm going on and on, there's a lot to say and I hope these lessons are of benefit to you, but the other thing I learned about this is that when you build something custom, I don't find it very roadworthy, meaning that I wouldn't really want to take this on a 3,000-mile road trip. It's just I'm worried that things are going to fall apart and the insulation isn't held on very well. So this is kind of more of a stationary unit for me. I still might take it places. I'm just kind of rambling here and giving you guys some of my thoughts, but because I'm going to use it more of a stationary type tiny home rather than an RV that's on the move, I think I'm going to need utilities outside of this anyway, like another small RV or a house, which takes some of the pressure off of me to put all the utilities in here. If you're using it on land where you have another house or a small RV or something, then you wouldn't need this to be totally self-sufficient. What I'm doing is I'm giving you an excuse not to force it to be totally self-sufficient. You could take showers at campgrounds. You can cook on a camping stove outside. If there's one message that I would give to you guys, it is that there are hacks. There are ways around being self-sufficient. Or not self-sufficient, being completely contained, self-contained, and having everything in here. Yeah, Judah, I'll be outside in 1 minute. My son is outside and waiting for me. But there are ways around that. You can use campground showers. You can cook outside. You can use little portable toilets that you can empty. So I wouldn't put all of this pressure on yourself to try to make it perfect and have everything in it. There's some mold avoiders that I know that are living in a canvas tent with a heater, and then they have an outhouse and they cook outside. There's another video on my YouTube channel that you guys can watch that's called Making Movements Toward Health. And it's about giving up some of the benefits of civilization in order to gain your health. And I thought, early on, how can that really matter that much? But I'm realizing now that making these sacrifices to get to a more pristine sleeping and living and working environment has been really huge for me. And obviously my family hasn't participated in all of this. I was the sickest one and I've needed to heal more. So there was a time where a month or two at a time, my wife, actually for 6 months in Reno, my wife and kids lived in a brand new apartment. It was clean enough, but I lived by myself to heal. So I'm not saying this is always the solution for a whole family, but for a really sick person, if someone is so sick that they absolutely must do anything possible to heal, then it's worth making the trade-offs for utilities, not having all the utilities in there, and instead using utilities in a house or a campground or a portable toilet or whatever. Like these things matter. Like making these trade-offs really matter. Eric told me that when he finished his custom truck camper, which was a lot like this, aluminum siding, that he moved right in before it had a shower and anything. He just moved right in, and he said the relief was instant. And I feel the same way. I feel like the relief has been instant in here. It's totally shocked me and blown me away. So this video isn't so much a how-to video, how to make a trailer. It's more a why-to video, why to make a trailer. And this has been like the best thing that I've ever done. And I'm in shock at how I didn't know that there was. That's the thing. I didn't really know that there was any more better to feel. I thought that I had kind of already recovered to the maximum extent, which was about 70 to 90% from my all-time sickness low, which is great. I mean, who's going to complain about being bedridden and saying goodbye to your family and dying and then recovering 70 to 90%? But I feel like living in here has pushed me to 80 to 95% recovered. Now that is, just to be full disclosure, full honesty, that is when I am clear of mold. If I go into a bad MT plume or spend 3 hours in a really bad building, I will have a setback that I'll have to recover from and get clear again from. But in the event that I am clear and I'm staying in here and I'm practicing mold avoidance, I'm anywhere from 80 to 95% of my normal best health. And one of the amazing changes that's happened since I've been living in here, and sorry to go on and on about this, this is my video, so I'm talking about what I want. If you guys don't like it, there's plenty of other YouTube videos to go watch. And in this day and age, you can stream Netflix, you can stream Hulu, you can stream YouTube. Go find something else to watch. But this is my video, so I'm going to talk about what I want. I just am a little sensitive because I've had people emailing me lately, and they're like whining about my content, and I'm just like, you know what? If you don't like it, you're welcome to go watch other stuff. But one of the big changes that's happened since I moved in here about a week ago is that I have all this newfound motivation and energy to do other things with my life. Like, I want to start new work projects. I want to go four-wheeling and off-roading with my kids. I'm starting to think about, I'm just thinking about other things. And for a long time, I was like recovered, but I was still sort of not really wanting to go do other stuff. And so that's been just like a surprise. Something's not the placebo effect when it surprises you. People are like, oh, how do you know mold avoidance is not the placebo effect? I'm like, you don't understand what the placebo effect is. The placebo effect is when you have diarrhea or a headache and the doctor gives you a fake white sugar pill and they say this is going to cure your diarrhea and headache, and you take the pill and your brain tricks you into thinking that you're actually better. And this is the opposite of the placebo effect. This is me moving into this RV because, the house was good, but it wasn't perfect, and we had some standing water, and I just wanted to not be in there as much. And then all of these benefits have been unexpected. They haven't been like, oh, gosh, I'm going to feel great when I move in here. This was just like a little stopgap place to sleep for me, and all of these benefits have broadsided me in complete surprise and shock. So that's sort of why I'm so amazed at this. And I wanted to make one last comment before I let you guys go. I probably should have made this as a podcast because you guys are just listening to me and I'm not showing you anything, and the camera's probably shaky, and this would have been a better podcast. But maybe it's more legitimate if I make it standing in my RV with my food and my computer so you guys can see that, yeah, I'm actually like living in here. The other comment I will make is that the wood stove, which right now is a tremendous mess, but the wood stove has had some huge benefits that have been extremely unexpected, And Eric told me that putting a wood stove in his RV was the best thing that he ever did. And I've learned by now that when Eric says something, he's usually not making stuff up. It's usually stuff that he's really thought about and experimented with, and there's a reason to what he says. I have noticed on nights when and I mentioned this on the forum and stuff, but I'm just going to throw it in here. I've noticed on nights when I sleep with the wood stove on, not on, stoked, going, whatever. It doesn't have an on switch. It's a wood stove. You have to put wood in it. I wake up feeling much better. And I think there's a number. I've identified maybe 5 to 10 reasons why that might be true. I think there's a lot of benefits of wood burning stove. When I first put this wood stove in, I was like, my body was craving wood heat. It was like there was something healthy about it. The smoke, the radiant heat. There's a lot of other people that have agreed that wood heat has helped heal their bodies from mold illness. And there's plasma, there's biological effects of wood. Open flames create plasma and different energy. And I don't mean woo-woo new age energy. I mean actually like legitimately identified scientific energetic fields and things like that that have very legitimate scientific backgrounds. I don't mean like, oh, it's so relaxing. I mean like actual scientific things happen when you're burning wood in an open flame. But Eric pointed out another interesting benefit, and that is that the heat in the chimney creates a convective draft that kind of sucks the air out of your RV. And obviously you need to keep a window cracked, but the air creates a convective airflow that sucks out your breath and your detox. When you're detoxing mold at night, you're breathing and you're rebreathing your detox. The wood stove perhaps helps suck some of that out, almost like a ceiling fan would do. And so that's kind of an interesting benefit. My wood stove has I'll go into the wood stove later. I would have got a bigger wood stove if I could do it over again. I would have done a few things differently. But that's an interesting fact about the wood stove. The other thing that I did when I built this RV is it's not airtight. There are a lot of the walls are not fully sealed. In between these seams, they're just overlapped. They're overlapped downwards so the weather can't get in, the rain can't get in. But this whole thing is not airtight. There's holes in the floor. I get drafts and breezes coming in, and that was on purpose. I didn't want to make it airtight because I don't want mold grows in confined places, right? That there's no breathability. So one of the things I did was I didn't seal up. You know, the floor panels have seams in them. You can see, I can see the sky. And now, don't get me wrong, water cannot get in here. We've had torrential downpours since we got this, and not a single drop of water has gotten in. So there's a difference between not making something airtight and having water be able to get in. But Eric has told me that even when water has leaked into his RV, it hasn't mattered. And I believe him because, as you guys can see, my floor right now is an absolute mess. There's mud. You can see my muddy boots from living in New Mexico. I have water on the floor sometimes. There's dirt in the door, and it doesn't do the same thing that wood does. Whatever grows, whatever water does, without the wood, it's harmless. It is mind-boggling how leaving the wood out makes such a big difference. And in some ways, I sort of feel like we're in a sci-fi movie. Remember there was that Batman movie where the enemy Batman character, I don't remember who he was, he sent out a radio signal that poisoned everyone's mind and made them all zombies. In some ways, I feel like modern housing, especially the pressed particle board, not natural wood, dimensional lumber, in other words, trees that have just been sliced into shapes, is healthy and fine. I'm talking about plywood that's pressed together with glue and preservatives and chemicals and heavy metals. I feel like in some ways it's like this plague on society that has poisoned us. And we're looking for all of these other clues. Eat organic, do acupuncture, avoid EMF, don't drink coffee, address your adrenal fatigue. And I feel like it's possible that almost all of it is a result of modern housing. and there's like this one 800-pound gorilla in the room that is the problem, and we're fishing around killing cockroaches and spiders and not addressing the 800-pound gorilla. The 800-pound gorilla being modern housing, and the cockroaches and the spiders being, EMFs and food. And if you're in a room with enemies, you obviously want to address the gorilla first, because he's going to rip your arms off and rip your face off, which isn't to say that you shouldn't get rid of the cockroaches and spiders that are bothering you, but you should probably prioritize the gorilla. And it's so hard to get clear of modern housing, because everything is modern housing, that we never get the chance to address the 800-pound gorilla. And that's why we feel so good tent camping, and that's why a lot of people say that they feel even better tent camping than living in an RV. So at this point, my compromise, my middle ground is I would build an unfinished RV because it's too much of a pain in the butt to build a perfect RV, and I would have utilities somewhere else, like a camping stove, taking showers at a campground. And I'm kind of getting off topic now here, but this is sort of like turning into like a mini documentary on Brian Rosner's experience with an RV. But after I went through the initial mold intensification detox phase, I found that I didn't need to shower as much, and I've gone, 2 or 3 weeks without showering. My wife does not condone this, and she still showers every day, so I'm not putting this on her. But when I've lived out in the woods, I have gone, a couple weeks without showering. And again, I want to make this clear to you guys that this has not been with my kids or my family. Like I said, last summer in Reno, they lived in an apartment for 6 months. I spent some of my days at the apartment, and then I went off on my own. I don't want you guys to think that my family is living like this, because first of all, my wife is unwilling to, and second of all, that's not, I wouldn't put my family through that. My family is doing a less extreme version of mold avoidance because I was the sickest one, and they did live with me in the regular Coachman RV, which was like a regular, comfortable RV. But when it's gone to this extreme where I'm sleeping in a metal box, when it's 0 degrees, they are not doing that with me. Just want to be clear about that. Basically deprioritizing the benefits of civilization, like frequent showers and indoor cooking and turning on light switches, and raising the priority of getting away from modern housing has made a huge difference to me. So I could ramble on for days. Maybe you guys can tell that I have a lot more energy and my brain is working more clearly. And I could literally just make this video like 3 hours long, and maybe I'll make a part 2 so you guys can hear some more thoughts about it. But the summary is that I failed to make the RV the way I wanted it to be, with lights that switch on and like a real RV with all those amenities. But I succeeded in somehow separating myself on a leap of faith from even good enough conventional housing, good enough apartments, good enough RVs that are made out of modern chemically treated plywood. And I've extracted myself from that and put myself in here, and I've just been absolutely blown away by the benefits. It's just broadsided me. Like I'm like a new person. I'm digging into work projects that I haven't touched in a long time. I'm waking up in the morning processing life problems that have been, logistical mold avoidance problems and money problems and housing problems and business problems. I'm waking up in the morning with solutions in my head, like I used to before I got sick. I mean, you guys remember the days where your brain actually worked, and your brain was working on problems while you were sleeping. And I have 3 space heaters running in here, and the EMF from those space heaters should be screwing me up, right? This goes back to the whole, which toxins do we avoid? Now, in the intensification phase of mold avoidance, the first 2 years, I was more sensitive to space heaters being run in a confined area and the EMF from that. But we believe that after you get through intensification, the heavy metal detox passes, all this stuff happens, that the body can start functioning. And I don't feel the heaters in here. Now, I will say that when I go to bed at night, I turn off my laptop and my hotspot, and I unplug my second video game monitor over there to reduce the EMFs, but I do run the space heaters at night. I don't even know if it matters, honestly, if I turn that stuff off, but I just do it because why not? Kill some cockroaches while you're attacking the 800-pound gorilla. So I think that's all I have to say. Moral of the story is do what it takes to put health first. This is what Simca taught me. Health first. If you put health first, you may not need light switches in your RV. You might be okay with a headlamp. I can't really find my headlamp right now. Right now I am running, this is my electrical wiring, you guys can see. I'm running some extension cords through the window. Not very fancy, right? It occurred to me when I was finishing this up, and I was like, oh no, poor me, I don't have power in here. I was like, I can have power in here, I'll just run it through the window, and I leave the window cracked about 2 or 3 inches anyway for wood stove safety, so that I don't, it's dangerous to run a wood stove without having enough air. But this place ventilates so well and has so many open pockets and, open areas, it's not airtight. I'm sure it would be sucking enough air in anyway. So my little sleeping structure here, I'll just show you guys once again. I have a huge amount, 8 inches of insulation on the floor. You could use a cot or something instead. It's a disgusting mess in there right now because I've been surviving winter, but it's cold. When it gets down to 0 degrees, -5 degrees Fahrenheit, it's cold in here, and you have to think ahead and get the wood stove ready and turn the heaters on. But I've never been uncomfortably cold. It's always just, getting ready for bed. But people don't have to live in this kind of a cold climate. For us, this was a huge step. This RV has allowed us to have stability in the wintertime. The last 2.5 winters, when winter has come, we have been forced to evacuate because we have not had a good enough, my family is fine in the house, but I have not had a good enough place to sleep. It gets too cold. Sleeping in the back of my truck, so let me go into that for a minute. Let me compare and contrast sleeping in the back of my pickup truck. I have other videos you guys can watch on sleeping in the back of my Dodge Ram with an aluminum camper shell. I actually prefer that to this RV. And you guys might be surprised because I've been seeing the benefits of this RV. But the truck is so versatile. It's so small, I can hose it out. There's nothing in it. I can drive it around. It minimizes the Brian Rosner sleeping needs to such a sustainable, efficient setup that it's like mold avoider light speed shortcut. If you guys can get a truck and a camper shell, it's way better than a tent. And I've gone into the advantages. Why is a camper shell better than a tent? No setup. It's huge. You can just hop in and sleep. More discreet. If you have to sleep in a Walmart parking lot, you can't sleep in a tent. Or I've slept in Home Depot and truck stops. More secure. Animals and water runoff can't get to you. Wind, rain, snow. You sleep like a baby in the back of a truck because it's a solid metal object. You're not blowing around and everything. Tons more advantages. I've listed like 10 advantages of a pickup truck versus a tent. It's more sustainable. A tent, yeah, you can go tent camping for a few weeks or a month, but your tent's going to get muddy and it's going to tear and the zipper's going to break and you're going to stuff it the wrong way. The metal camper shell lasts basically forever and I can just climb in there. It's a long-term solution, whereas a tent is a short-term solution. The discretion of it, though, people not knowing you're sleeping in there, is worth gold. You might be scoping out a new neighborhood and you might want to sleep in the neighborhood to see how you feel in the morning. What are you going to do, set up a tent on someone's lawn? Like, no. But I've slept in the back of my truck, climbed in there after dark, gotten out in the morning, and nobody really cares. And what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to get a ticket? I mean, it's not like I'm engaging in criminal activity. I'm just sleeping in my truck. It's a ticket. It's an $80 ticket, which I've never been caught before. But you can do it discreetly. Some other benefits of a vehicle is it's instantly portable. If a mold plume blows in and you need to evacuate in the middle of the night, you just hop out of the back of your truck and turn the engine on and drive away. You don't have to pack up a tent. But the animals and the weather are a huge factor in tents. And I'm not bashing tent camping. Tent camping can get people immediately out of their bad environment and into mold avoidance. I'm not saying that at all. I love tents. I have a tent. I love tent camping. I'm just saying if you want a bulletproof solution, then you wouldn't then I think a truck with a camper shell is much better, especially an aluminum camper shell. I tried a fiberglass camper shell. It was an absolute horrible. The fiberglass was off gassing. I don't really have chemical sensitivities anymore, but being in an enclosed space with fiberglass was bad, and sleeping in it, it was just too much chemicals. It was noxious, the fumes from it. So get a metal camper shell. But in the summertime, I will probably still sleep in my truck instead of in this thing if I need to. The truck is like super. This custom RV has been like a huge blessing and very eye-opening, but the truck gives me superpowers. I can sleep anywhere, anytime, any weather, any animals, any level of discretion, zero maintenance, and not be in a moldy place. Like, for example, my daughter had a gymnastics competition, and we had to go to a nearby city, and of course my family stayed in a nice hotel. And I went in the hotel and I was like, yeah, I can be in here for a few hours. I really don't want to sleep in here. Guess what? I just went and slept in the back of my truck. No problem. Easy to decontaminate because it's smaller. This RV is a lot bigger, and I would have to clean it. It's dusty, whatever. The truck, I can just take out my sleeping pads and my sleeping bag and hose out the truck. Now, I will say my truck has been exposed to outdoor super toxins like mystery toxin, and the cab of the truck with the leather and the plastic takes a long time to recover from a big slam, but the back of the truck, when I hose it out, it's almost instantly better. So metal seems to not hold on to these super toxins, which is another benefit. So the metal truck with the camper shell gives me superpowers, and can give you superpowers too. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't get a custom RV because it's too expensive, and where would I get it built, and it takes too long." Okay, get a truck with a camper shell. All right, everyone needs a vehicle. Well, maybe not everyone. Some people are too sick to drive, but for those of you who drive, if you already have a vehicle, you can sell your vehicle, you can get a truck, and you can put a $900 camper shell on there, and you will be almost as set up as having your own custom RV. It's the best thing I ever did, was getting a camper shell. I prefer not having a bed liner. You don't want plastic glued into the back of your truck. I was lucky enough to find a Dodge Ram that did not have a bed liner already pre-installed. You don't want plastic in there. It's too hard to decontaminate, but it would be better than sleeping in a moldy house. So do what you have to do. So the camper shell on the truck gives you superpowers. It's way better than a tent for sustainable long-term use in bad weather with animals and mud and runoff and bailing out of places in the middle of the night. A tent is fine too, though. If you got to do a tent, it's better than living in mold. So this is 45 minutes long. This is going to be my longest video that I've made now, but this is full of really good information. For those of you guys who stuck with it, maybe there was a little bit of editing that I could have done to get it down to 30 minutes, but I bet that the information I shared here took me 2.5 years, tens of thousands of dollars, and a lot of health sacrifices to gain. So I hope it's been worth it for you to watch this. Just a disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am a healthcare journalist. I've been writing and publishing alternative medicine books for a living for 20 years, so do not take this as medical advice. If you have a medical question, consult a physician. Also, a disclaimer, I am a independent adult over 21 years old. I do not recommend people subjecting kids to extreme cold and stuff like that. Like I said, my kids have never slept in the back of my truck. They have never lived in this camper with me. They come in here and they play with their toys for an hour or two, and then they go in the house. I do not recommend this kind of living setup for children. This is a adult, making your own decisions type of thing. That has been very hard on our family. We have gone through periods of separation, but I just won't allow my children to be in something that's not a fully completed house. And ultimately, I would love to be able to build this out, or find a company who could build a fully appointed custom RV that's ready for a family. I have not found that yet. I tried really hard in the fall I called companies. I mean, I tried to do that and I failed miserably. And maybe one day we'll succeed with that. But as it stands right now, this is an adult only activity, and that's just the way it is. So one of the ways that I get my children to be more clear of mold is we do like group camping trips where we meet up with friends at the fishing hunting trip and we go camping for a week or two at a time. I've also had my kids in our Coachman Freedom Express when we did our big road trip, and that was very good for them. But my kids were never as sick as me, so they thankfully have not needed this level of extreme. But for me personally, this level of extreme has been life-changing and has given me much more capacity to love my family, take care of my family, look for mold-free rental houses with my family, and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and end this right now. If you guys need further resources, I'm going to post some pictures of this camper in the description of this YouTube video. And you can join our Facebook group, Practical Mold Avoidance, where we discuss how to do extreme mold avoidance. You can read my book, Lyme Disease Supercharge. Even if you don't have Lyme disease, that book is about mold avoidance and how it's helped a lot of people overcome chronic illness, not just Lyme disease. What other resources? I have a Getting Started with Mold Avoidance Word doc that you can read that has all my links to everything. If you want that, you have to, I don't have an easy link to it. Maybe I'll put it in the description of this video. Getting Started with Mold Avoidance. It has all the links to the books and my podcast and everything else. Thanks for listening, you guys. Sorry this has been so long. I hope it's been educational for you. Building this custom RV and living in it and sleeping in my truck has been life-changing in so many ways. Take care, guys.